I thought the hardest part about marrying Chloe, 32 FM, would be planning the seating chart. Turns out, it was dismantling a decades-long conspiracy led by her closest friends. We'd been together for 4 years, a rock-solid team, or so I believed. We met through a casual kickball game with friends, and things just clicked. She's sweet, sensitive, and has a heart that's almost too big for this world. Chloe's inner circle was a trio she'd been tight with since diapers. Mark, her cousin, Ray, and Sophia. They were a package deal, a 4-person constellation where Chloe was the sun. When I first met them as just a friend, they were cool. But the moment I was reintroduced as the boyfriend, the temperature dropped. I figured I had to pay my dues, pass the friend test. But 4 years later, I was still taking the exam, and the proctors were getting nastier. A little background on Chloe. She's been through the ringer in past relationships. She never gave me the gritty details, she'd get too upset, but she hinted at emotional manipulation and toxicity. Knowing that, I tried to cover friends some slack. Their overprotectiveness probably came from a good place, right?
Wrong. Their behavior was a masterclass in subtle sabotage. Early on, if we were all at a bar, they'd literally form a human wall between us. They'd accidentally crash our dates because Chloe, being an open soul, would share her schedule with them. The only guaranteed alone time was a surprise weekend trip. You can only plan so many surprises before it feels like you're a secret agent dating a foreign asset. I finally reached my breaking point and laid it all out for Chloe. To her credit, she was blindsided. She lived in their ecosystem and had never seen the toxicity for what it was. The next time they tried their whisk her away routine, she called them on the spot. It was a nuclear option. She threatened to cut them off. After a huge blow-up, they relented and apologized. To her. I got nothing but icy silence. But things calmed down for a while. Then I proposed. In my family's tradition, we don't do modern engagement rings. I used my grandmother's heirloom ring, a stunning, ornate piece, part of a larger set she'd receive at our wedding. Was it a bit much for everyday wear? Sure. But it was a symbol of welcome, and gold is always a solid asset. Chloe loved its history and meaning. We'd talked about it openly. She was touched. That's when the trio made their move. They showed up at our apartment one evening when Chloe was out. Ray did the talking. They said I was forcing my traditions on her, that the jewelry was gaudy, and I was being selfish. Then they dropped the bomb. They said I was emotionally abusive, just like her exes. The accusation felt like a physical blow. I saw red. Chloe had asked me as a personal favor to make Mark and Ray groomsmen. My brother was my best man, but I agreed to make her happy. After their tirade, I looked them dead in the eye and said, "You're out of the wedding party." The silence was deafening. When Chloe got home, I told her everything. She agreed they were completely out of line and that their comments about the gifts were unforgivable. But she thought I'd escalated things too far by booting them from the wedding. She dreamed of all 3 standing with her. I was left wondering if, in my anger, I'd become the jerk. The house of cards collapses. This is where the real story begins. After I shared my story online, a flood of comments pointed to a possibility I'd been blind to. Ray was in love with her. When I asked Chloe, she let out a nervous laugh. Then she got serious. She confirmed that years ago, right after high school, Ray had confessed his feelings. She turned him down, and he gave her the cold shoulder for months before worming his way back into the friend zone. She'd written it off as a passing crush. This revelation opened the floodgates. We finally had a deep, painful conversation about her past. She told me about 2 boyfriends who had ghosted her out of the blue, vanishing without a trace. It had shattered her confidence.
She was terrified that if I knew the details, I'd see the same flaw in her and disappear too. It broke my heart. She'd been carrying this shame for years. The timeline was the smoking gun. Both ghostings happened right after she'd introduced these guys to her friend group. My mind started connecting the dots. I knew one of these exes was a friend of a coworker. Swallowing my dislike for snooping, I reached out. We met for a coffee that tasted like anxiety. He was surprisingly candid. He told me he'd really liked Chloe, but had been warned by her very concerned friends that she had severe schizophrenia. They told him she was a lunatic, his word, and that a clean breakup could push her to violence or self-harm. Their advice? Ghost her. Disappear. He praised them for having his back. I sat there, my blood boiling, and recorded every damning word. Playing that recording for Chloe was agony. She crumpled. The pain in her eyes was something I never want to see again. She didn't eat for a day, just wept in my arms. But that pain forged a new, steely resolve in her. She was ready for war. She lured the trio over under the guise of wedding planning. They showed up, probably expecting her to call off the engagement. Instead, she calmly presented the accusation. They immediately erupted, pointing fingers at me, calling me a manipulative monster, trying to isolate her. That's when she played the recording. The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Even then, they tried to deny it, but Chloe was a goddess of fury. She stood her ground until, finally, her cousin Mark cracked. He confessed everything. They always thought she and Ray were meant to be. The lies about schizophrenia, the drama over the heirlooms, it was all a coordinated campaign to create doubt and drive a wedge between us. They saw my family's traditions as a cultural pressure point they could exploit. Chloe didn't just end the friendship, she executed it. "Get out of my home. Never contact me again," she said, her voice trembling but firm. When they tried to argue, she threatened to call the cops. They left, the doors slamming shut on 2 decades of friendship. The fallout was immediate and messy. The friends ran to our social circle, spinning a tale of me being an abusive controller. But their story had more holes than Swiss cheese. Most of our friends saw through it and rallied around us. Ray's parents even called, revealing they'd been hoping for a union with Chloe for years. It was a whole family delusion. We've postponed the wedding. The betrayal is a deep wound Chloe needs to heal from in therapy. We're also starting couples counseling, not because we're broken, but because we want to build our future on a foundation of reinforced steel. The toxic trio and their families are permanently uninvited from our lives. Their grand plan to keep her for themselves ultimately set her free. Our love, tested in the worst way possible, didn't just survive, it evolved into something unbreakable. This story is a work of fiction. All names, characters, businesses, places, events, locales, and incidents are either the products of the author's imagination or used in a fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental.